Imagine seeing a city so magnificent that people believed it would last forever. Its walls were enormous. Its temples were covered with wealth. Its palaces glowed with power. Its gates shone with blue glazed bricks and golden images. Its streets carried traders, priests, soldiers, and kings. To the ancient world, Babylon was not just another city. Babylon was a symbol. It was the crown of human ambition, the center of power, and the image of a golden age that seemed too great to collapse. And yet, that shining age came to an end. The city that once ruled empires became a ruin buried by time. So what really happened to Babylon's golden age? How did one of the greatest cities in history rise so high, and why did it fall so hard? To understand Babylon, we have to begin in Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. This region is often called the cradle of civilization because some of the world's first great cities, laws, and kingdoms rose there. Long before Babylon became famous, Mesopotamia was already filled with powerful city-states, competing kings, rich farmland, and advanced knowledge. In this world of conflict and opportunity, Babylon began as a modest city. It was not the first great city in the region. It was not the oldest. It was not the most powerful. At first, it was simply one among many. But history has a strange way of lifting certain places above all others. Babylon began to rise under the Amorites, a people who established rule in the region. One of the most famous early kings of Babylon was Hammurabi. His name still echoes through history because of the law code associated with him, one of the most famous legal systems of the ancient world. Hammurabi did not just rule a city. He built a kingdom. Through war, diplomacy, and organization, he expanded Babylon's reach and gave it a new identity. Under him, Babylon became more than a local power. It became a kingdom with ambition. Even after Hammurabi, Babylon's path was not smooth. Like many ancient cities, it faced invasion, political struggle, and changing fortunes. Empires rose around it. Foreign rulers came and went. At times Babylon lost power. At times it was overshadowed. But the city endured. That endurance mattered. Babylon survived long enough to grow into something even greater. It was as if the city was waiting for its moment, waiting for the age when it would become the most dazzling city on earth. That moment came centuries later during the Neo-Babylonian Empire, especially under King Nebuchadnezzar II. When most people imagine Babylon, this is the Babylon they picture. This was the Babylon of huge walls, monumental gates, grand palaces, and legendary wealth. Under Nebuchadnezzar, Babylon became the pride of the ancient Near East. He rebuilt and expanded the city on an enormous scale. Temples were restored. Fortifications were strengthened. Roads were widened. Ceremonial avenues were decorated. The city was designed not only for defense and administration, but for awe. One of Babylon's most famous features was the Ishtar Gate, a stunning entrance covered in deep blue glazed bricks and decorated with dragons and bulls. It was not just a gate. It was a statement. It told anyone who entered that this was a city of divine favor, royal power, and unmatched splendor. Beyond the gate stretched the great processional way, lined with walls and symbols of authority. Temples rose toward the sky. The ziggurat, a massive step tower, stood as a connection between earth and heaven in the minds of the Babylonians. Every part of the city was meant to project order, wealth, and greatness. Then there were the Hanging Gardens, one of the most famous wonders ever associated with Babylon. Ancient writers described lush terraces filled with trees, flowing water, and exotic plants rising above the city like a green mountain. Whether the gardens existed exactly as later writers imagined them is still debated, but the legend itself tells us something important. Babylon became so magnificent that people believed it must have possessed wonders beyond imagination. That is what a golden age looks like. It is not just admired. It becomes legendary. Babylon was not only impressive because of its buildings. It was also a center of government, trade, religion, and culture. Goods from distant lands passed through its markets. Its scribes preserved records and knowledge. Its priests carried out rituals in powerful temples. Its farmers depended on complex irrigation systems that turned the surrounding land fertile. Its rulers managed taxes, labor, warfare, and diplomacy. Babylon was an organized machine of empire. Behind the beauty of the city stood an entire system that fed its greatness. The city also became deeply important in biblical history. Babylon was the empire that conquered Jerusalem and carried many Judeans into exile. Because of this, Babylon entered the biblical imagination not only as a mighty empire, but as a symbol of human pride, oppression, and judgment. In scripture and later tradition, Babylon came to represent more than stone walls and royal palaces. It became an image of worldly power standing against God. This gave Babylon a second life in history. Even after its political power faded, its name survived as a warning and a symbol. And yet, beneath all this glory, Babylon carried the seeds of weakness. This is true of many great empires. From the outside they appear unshakable. Their walls are high. Their armies are feared. Their wealth seems endless. But inside, cracks are already forming. Babylon's greatness depended heavily on strong rulers, centralized power, and the continued success of its empire. When those foundations weakened, the glittering surface could not protect it forever. Nebuchadnezzar's reign was brilliant, but no king lives forever. After his death, instability followed. Leadership became less secure. Political tension increased. Different rulers came and went. The empire that looked so strong under one great king began to lose its balance. A city may have magnificent walls, but walls cannot solve every problem. They cannot fix weak leadership. They cannot stop internal decline. They cannot preserve a golden age once momentum begins to fade. At the same time, a new power was rising to the east. The Persian Empire, under Cyrus the Great, was expanding rapidly. Cyrus was not just another conqueror. He was a strategist, a builder of empire, and a ruler who understood how to win both land and loyalty. As Persia grew stronger, Babylon's position became more dangerous. The empire that once dominated others was now facing a rival large enough and clever enough to challenge it. In 539 BC, Babylon fell to Cyrus the Great. For a city so famous, the fall was shockingly quiet compared to what many might expect. Ancient accounts suggest that the Persians entered Babylon with relatively little destruction. Some traditions claim the waters of the Euphrates were diverted, allowing troops to enter under the defenses. Other details remain debated by historians, but the result is clear. Babylon, the mighty city that seemed impossible to conquer, was taken. The Golden Age had reached its turning point. This was not the instant destruction of the city itself. Babylon did not vanish overnight in fire and smoke. That is one of the most important truths in its story. The fall of Babylon was dramatic, but the death of its golden age was slower. Under Persian rule, Babylon still existed. Its temples still stood. Its people still lived there. It remained a major city for a time. But something had changed forever. Babylon was no longer the beating heart of an independent empire. It was now a possession inside a greater imperial system. That change mattered more than it may seem. Great cities draw life from political power, economic importance, and symbolic prestige. Once Babylon lost its place at the center of an empire, its future began to dim. Trade patterns shifted. Imperial priorities changed. Other cities grew in importance. Babylon remained famous, but fame is not the same as power. A city can still be admired while slowly losing the very forces that once made it great. Centuries passed, and Babylon continued its long decline. New rulers took control of the region. Empires changed hands. The world moved on. Even Alexander the Great, when he arrived in Babylon, recognized the city's immense significance. He reportedly planned to make it one of the centers of his empire. That alone shows how powerful Babylon's reputation remained. But Alexander died before such dreams could be fulfilled. Once again, Babylon stood near the center of history, but the old golden age did not return. Without lasting restoration, the city continued to fade. Its buildings aged. Its political role weakened. Its population declined. The forces of nature and neglect began to do what even conquering armies had not fully done. Walls cracked. Temples crumbled. Palaces disappeared beneath dust and earth. The city that had once amazed the world slowly surrendered to silence. This is why the story of Babylon is so powerful. Its end was not just a single defeat. It was a long unraveling. First, the city rose from obscurity. Then it reached astonishing greatness. Then it lost the one thing that had made that greatness possible, its position as the center of power. After that, time completed what conquest had begun. And still, Babylon never truly disappeared from memory. Archaeologists uncovered its remains. Historians reconstructed its story. The Bible preserved its symbolic meaning. Popular imagination kept its name alive. Babylon became one of those rare places that outlived itself. Even as its stones fell, its legend grew. Today, people who know little about ancient Mesopotamia still know the name Babylon. They know it as a city of pride, wealth, rebellion, wonder, and ruin. So what really happened to Babylon's golden age? It was not ended by one cause alone. It was not simply destroyed in a single night, nor did it vanish like a myth. Babylon's golden age ended because the conditions that created it could not last forever. Great kings died. Political stability weakened. Stronger empires rose. Power shifted. Trade changed. Time moved on. And the city that once looked eternal discovered the same truth every empire eventually faces: human glory is never permanent. That may be the deepest lesson of Babylon. The city reached heights that seemed untouchable. It had wealth, beauty, knowledge, military power, and worldwide fame. It shaped history. It inspired fear. It dazzled the imagination. Yet none of that could stop decline forever. Babylon reminds us that the greatest civilizations can be brought low, not only by enemies from outside, but by weakness from within and the unstoppable passage of time. In the end, Babylon's golden age became exactly what history so often turns greatness into: a memory, a warning, a legend. The city that once stood at the center of the world became a symbol of how fragile power really is. Its gates no longer welcome kings. Its temples no longer echo with priests. Its markets no longer overflow with treasures from distant lands. But its story still speaks. It tells us that no empire is too rich to fall, no city too glorious to fade, and no golden age too bright to disappear. And maybe that is why Babylon still fascinates us. It was not only one of the greatest cities that ever lived. It was one of the clearest mirrors of human ambition ever built. In Babylon, we see the dream of greatness. We see the beauty of human achievement. But we also see the danger of pride and the certainty of decline. That is why the ruins of Babylon still matter. They are not just broken stones in the desert. They are the remains of a warning written across history itself. If you enjoyed this journey through the rise and fall of Babylon, make sure to subscribe and join us for more deep stories from the ancient world. And tell me in the comments, do you think Babylon's fall was inevitable, or could its golden age have lasted longer?